Welcome to Module 2, Critical Thinking Basics. Undoubtedly, critical thinking is a complex topic. What it means exactly and how you teach it, well, it sometimes depends on who you talk to or what source you read. However, we can all agree that it involves two things: skills and dispositions.
When we think of the skills associated with critical thinking, many of us think about Bloom's taxonomy. You may recall that Bloom was a classics teacher and educational philosopher who, back in the 50s, analyzed the knowledge we teach and placed it in a specific order from easy to difficult. The more difficult levels are often referred to as higher order thinking skills. The specific terms for each level have gone through some renovations through the years, but it is still generally agreed that the abilities described become more difficult as we move up in the order. Lower levels include skills such as remembering or understanding. True, false, and multiple choice tests are usually examples of assessing these lower levels. Next in the order is applying and analyzing. In Module 3, we will discuss these as well as the higher order skills of evaluating and creating. Other models are also available from organizations such as the Foundation for Critical Thinking, which provides interactive tools on the elements of thought, a primary component of their model for thinking. Another example is Think Watson model to think red, recognize assumptions, evaluate arguments, and draw conclusions. Our workbook provides these resources and more. The takeaway for now is that critical thinking involves skills that we can identify, teach, and help students develop and apply.
But students need more than just the skills, because how well they use critical thinking is dependent on their willingness to use those skills. For that reason, we also look at dispositions. In other words, how willing is a person, well, how willing is anyone, to think critically? For example, as part of my self-reflection to test my own willingness, I might ask myself if I tried to find information to support another person's argument before I decided I didn't agree. I might check to see if I have thought through the consequences of various options before making a recent decision. I might consider when the last time was I read a report or article just to learn something new. I might even want to think about whether or not I've recently laughed at somebody who expressed a belief or an opinion. How well and how often I do or do not do these things may be an indication of how willing I am to think critically. And the same goes for students. The takeaway? It should be our goal to help students understand the skills required to think critically, but we should also try to help them understand how to reflect on their use of those skills. And for many of us, it might be helpful to engage in that process ourselves.
So when do we teach critical thinking skills and encourage students to use them? Well, research says we should try to integrate it into our interactions with students when there is an opportunity for real-world judgment, problem-solving, application, alternate explanations, or decision-making. How we create such opportunities will depend on what we do, what class we teach, or what service we're trying to lend. We might be teaching biology, English, or art. We might be helping a student find resources for her paper. We might be engaging a student in selecting his schedule. But no matter what we do, we must be clear and we must be intentional. So our final takeaway in this module is this: we should use the terms involved in critical thinking and even use that phrase itself to let the students know this is what we expect.
This concludes Module 2, Critical Thinking Basics. We're glad you joined us and hope you'll keep the conversation going.